Hi guys, today we are going to be painting some oranges with a beautiful pink background. So here were my testes. So now I'm going to do the tutorial for you. So firstly we need our piece of paper with your oranges already drawn on. We need a palette for mixing your paint. We need your watercolors. Inside you'll see your colors, and then we also need our little spray bottle, and you can spray that so long. So let's move our picture out the way so it doesn't get wet, and then just wet your watercolors for me so long. And then you also need your water. Put your water on the side whichever hand you use. So if you're right-handed like me, put it that side. You'll also need your paper towel to dab your paintbrush when it's a little bit too wet, and then masking tape, a pen for at the end, your paint brushes. So we're going to be using a size 11 and a size 4, and then your test piece of paper. This one's always handy to see how your pigment's looking, if it's too dark, if it's too light, if it's got too much water. Whenever unsure, use your test paper. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to tape this to a flat surface. So you're going to take your masking tape and you're going to tape the picture all the way around. Try to get it nice and straight, but if it's not straight, it's not the end of the world. So just over the paper like that, and then push it down nicely, and then take it lightly and all the way around. The reason we do this is so that our paper doesn't warp. So we're going to do a background. We're going to do that pink background. So to create that, we're going to add quite a bit of paint on here, and the page is going to get saturated. So for it to fall flat again, we need to tape it down. So while you're painting, you'll see that your page is going to start to lift and bubble, and that's okay. All we have to do is leave it taped on until it's dry. Okay. Cool, let's get going. Okay, so taking your bigger brush, your size 11, we can wet that so long. So when we're painting with watercolor, remember you don't ever want too much water. So when you take your water, when you get a bit of water on your brush, always on the rim, just push it down. So you can take off the excess water, and then you get your color. So when you're grabbing your color, so we're going to start with magenta. So all the color names are on the outside. Magenta is number 4. We're going to grab that color, and you'll see because we've wetted, the color is ready to go. So when we grab the color, you sort of want to twist your brush. These brushes do keep their shape, but it's always good practice to do that. Okay, so then we put our color in our palette, and we're going to start with the background. So we don't want it too dark because this is going to only be the first layer of our background. So the lighter we want to color, the more water we add. The darker, the less water. Okay, so we're going to jump straight into that background. So with watercolor, we wanted to see that it's a painting. We want to see all of these brush strokes and like little bits of the page coming through. We don't want it flat. So don't worry about feeling that it doesn't look perfect, just paint. Some areas might be a little bit darker and some might be a little bit lighter, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, I'm starting to run out of color a bit, so I'm going to grab a bit more. So if you feel like you've put a bit too much color on somewhere, so say I take it straight out of there and it's really dark like that, you just go grab a little bit of water, squish it off on the rim, and then just get the water into the paint, and it will instantly dilute it and you can spread it out. Remember, we want to see brush strokes. Don't be scared of brush strokes. So the other thing that the masking tape will do is create a border around your picture. So where this comes off, the white will be left on the paper. And that's quite a nice detail to have, especially obviously when you have a background, because then it's just that contrast of the paper and the background. So you'll see there, that's the white and there's the background, and I like that. So in the hard to reach places, you want to just use the points of your brush. So you're not going to push down. If you push down, you get more surface area, but if you less pressure, you can create a thinner stroke and you can get into those hard to reach places. So there, I'm just using the tip of my brush. And remember that you do have another brush. For me, it's comfortable to use this big one. If it's not comfortable for you, grab what feels comfortable. So what's nice about watercolor is sometimes it does just feel like you're coloring in. Such a cool feeling just to play. And remember, your painting is not going to look like mine. It's going to look like your painting. Everybody's will always look different. And that's the beauty. The beauty of art. Everybody's can be different and still appreciated. The background does take quite long. It's a big space to fill up. You can also use a technique called wet on wet. So that would mean you wet your page a little bit before. Try not to have puddles, just to glaze over. And then you grab some of your paint. And then this does make it, it's quicker to do it this way, but for a beginner, it can feel hard to control. So you play around, see what feels better for you. If it takes longer, it doesn't matter, because we're here for the process. We're here to be mindful, have fun, and yeah, just enjoy the process. Okay, so that's quite dark compared to everything else. So remember, what I do is I get a bit of water, take a bit of water, take the excess off around the rim, and just spread it out. There we go. So remember, when we are in the more finer areas, we don't push down, we're just using the point of our paintbrush. Okay, so now if there's some areas where you want to just make it a bit lighter, you can. So if it's a bit dark in areas, you can just do that. But don't worry too much, because we want a little bit of this not flat look. We want it to have some depth to it, and that's what this creates. When it's flat, it doesn't have any depth to the picture, which obviously there are paintings that you want like this. But with watercolor, we want to have depth with the color, because it creates it so beautifully. So when I paint my leaves, I'm noticing all the background areas that I've left out. So I'll go back later and then I'll just fill those in. But don't worry about it while you're painting your leaves. Just get that done. So there where it was a bit watery in the beginning, you can see it doesn't settle as nicely. Okay, perfect. Okay, I want to go add a little bit more of a darker green now to the leaves. So now we're going to just add to this one, if you still have, you're going to add more pigment. So you're going to add both of your greens so that it won't be as translucent. It'll be a bit darker in color. That looks quite nice to me. Okay, let's see. Yes. I think I might even try add a little bit more. Okay. So now we're going to go to the edges of our leaves. So you can always look at your reference picture as well that I'll give you with your kit. So the dark little shadows we're going to go and put in where the leaves are now, and you can sort of do your own thing as well. So look at the reference or just decide for yourself. So on one edge there'd normally be a little bit darker. So there's a little curl there, so underneath the curl it's going to be darker. I think that would be darker there because it's underneath. Okay, and now I want to just show you how to blend. So now you can see those lines are quite harsh there. So we're going to rinse our brush, get the pigment off. This you can do as you go. Try not to wait to the end to come back to it because it will dry too much. And then we're going to go, I just want to zoom in here so you can see nicely. Okay, so you're sort of just going to squish your brush into the color so that that harsh line goes away. Okay, that one we're going to leave because that's a little folded over a bit, so that line needs to be there. Okay. So if you want, this could actually help just to keep your brush clean. Work with your other brush. We'll put the color, the darker leaf on with the small brush, and then we'll blend with the bigger brush to keep it clean. Remember not to have too much water on your brush as you lose control. So this is also behind the orange, so I'm going to put that, make that a bit darker. That would create a shadow. Okay, while it's still wet, don't wait too long. You're going to go and just blend that bit in. You don't want this too wet either. Okay, again, that's a little curl, so the curl would normally be lighter, and then underneath that curl there would be a shadow. And then we'll keep the light source there at the top. Yeah, and then just go down all the little stems, because generally they'd all have a bit of a dark and a bit of a light. This one's under the orange, so I'm actually going to make it a bit darker. So see how I just decide as I go. So you can do the same thing. You don't have to look at the picture and have it exactly the same. You decide as you go. But just make sure you have a little bit of dark and a little bit of light on all the bits and bobs. I know it's hard to get on the stems, but just try. And if you fill the whole stem out with dark, then that's okay. You also want to get in our little, the bits that attach to the orange. Don't forget to put the green there, because I've forgotten. So make sure to do that. Okay, underneath this orange, I think it would be a bit darker and then maybe lighter towards the tip. Okay, do I need to go smudge? I'll smudge just along a little bit. I need a bit more water. Get a little bit more water. Dab it so it's not sopping wet. I think that piece needs a bit of dark there, it's too much light. Just want to see if I'm still in the picture. Yes. Okay, well, let me just zoom out just a little bit. There we go. Oh, I used the wrong paintbrush now. I want to keep my big one for the blending. So I'll put that there. Okay, so we're going to move on to the oranges now. I want you to feel your background. If you touch it, paint mustn't come off and it mustn't be wet on your fingers. It can feel cool, it just mustn't be wet, especially around your oranges, because if it is still wet, it will bleed into each other. So it's very important to just wait a little bit. It doesn't take long with watercolor. That's what's nice about watercolors. So you can even give it 5 minutes and you should be ready to go. We're going to paint oranges now. So we're going to take vermilion. Vermilion is number 2, and it's sort of like an orangey color, but it's got, I'd say, a little bit more of a red hue to it. So that's our vermilion, and I want to get that quite light. We want our first layer of the orange to be nice and light. So we always work from the light color up. So you never start dark with light with watercolors. You always start with a light color. Okay, so now you're just coloring in your oranges. Okay, so we want a little bit of a light source, so we're going to do something called lifting now. You're going to put your paintbrush into your water. And we're going to have the light source coming from that side, so we're just going to lift our paint a little bit. So it just takes a bit of your paint off. Okay, and then you can dab a bit. Let's get that puddle away there. There we go. And to soften those edges around, we just squish it in, just like I did now. So now you'll see there's a bit of a light source there. Okay, let's go to our next one. If your paintbrush is becoming dry, it won't glide as nicely, or your bristles will start to sort of come apart. So it can sometimes look like that. That's when you know your brush is a bit too dry, then you can always add a little bit extra water. And always try to just put the tip in. Try not to put the whole thing in, because then you have paint running down that runs onto your picture. So always just the tip of your brush. Yes, let's go do that light source. So when you do the light source, you want to do it before the paint dries. So go get a bit of clean water, and then we just squish in the place where we want the paint to come off. Dab a bit, get that color off. Dab, dab. And there we go. Now we have the light source on that one. Okay, I'm running out of a bit of vermilion here, so I'm going to take some more. Oh, no, that's the wrong color. I need number 2. Just put it in there. A little bit more water. Okay, let's lift again. Now we're on our last orange. Okay, and at this point, your picture doesn't really have a lot of depth, not much going on, so I know it can look like your picture might not look as you would imagine it would look now, seeing as you've painted like 4 oranges, but it will get there. So I'm just lifting a little bit there again. This one looks a bit light to me. I'm just going to add a little bit more color. Okay, so now once again we want those oranges to be dry before we start with the next one, or just cool to the touch but not wet. So this one is perfect, but this one is still wet, so I'm going to start on the top, and then by the time I'm at the bottom it will be dry. Okay, so now we're going to do the leaves. So I've got 2 hues of green here. I've got a viridian and I've got a sap green. So viridian looks like that, and a sap green looks like that. But I don't really like either of those on their own, so I'm going to mix the two together. So we're going to take our palettes. So try not to work on top of your picture. I have to, so you can see what I'm doing, but try not to do that because you can smudge it if it's still wet. Okay, and now the two of them together make this beautiful green. That to me is more like a leafy green for this sort of leaf. Okay, so now same thing. We want to go lighter. So we want it to be a little bit of a light wash on the leaf, so we can go lighter than that. I'd say about like that's good, just so that we can add our dark shadows on later. So if this is too dark, it's too dark, then what you do is you just add a little bit of water. Don't add too much that it's hard for you to control. Yes, there we go, that's good. Okay, and again we're just coloring in. The branches are a little bit narrow, so if you feel that you need to use your smaller brush now, you can. I'm going to stick to the big one, but where it's hard for me or it's a bit thinner, I'm going to use the point of my brush. Okay, so I'm feeling like my paint's a bit runny, so what I do is just dab it a little bit on my paper towel, because when the watercolor is too runny, it's hard to control. So when I paint my leaves, I'm noticing all the background areas that I've left out. So I'll go back later and then I'll just fill those in. But don't worry about it while you're painting your leaves. Just get that done. So there where it was a bit watery in the beginning, you can see it doesn't settle as nicely. Okay, perfect. Okay, I want to go add a little bit more of a darker green now to the leaves. So now we're going to just add to this one. If you still have, you're going to add more pigment. So you're going to add both of your greens so that it won't be as translucent. It'll be a bit darker in color. That looks quite nice to me. Okay, let's see. Yes. I think I might even try add a little bit more. Okay. So now we're going to go to the edges of our leaves. So you can always look at your reference picture as well that I'll give you with your kit. So the dark little shadows we're going to go and put in where the leaves are now, and you can sort of do your own thing as well. So look at the reference or just decide for yourself. So on one edge there'd normally be a little bit darker. So there's a little curl there, so underneath the curl it's going to be darker. I think that would be darker there because it's underneath. Okay, and now I want to just show you how to blend. So now you can see those lines are quite harsh there. So we're going to rinse our brush, get the pigment off. This you can do as you go. Try not to wait to the end to come back to it because it will dry too much. And then we're going to go, I just want to zoom in here so you can see nicely. Okay, so you're sort of just going to squish your brush into the color so that that harsh line goes away. Okay, that one we're going to leave because that's a little folded over a bit, so that line needs to be there. Okay. So if you want, this could actually help just to keep your brush clean. Work with your other brush. We'll put the color, the darker leaf on with the small brush, and then we'll blend with the bigger brush to keep it clean. Remember not to have too much water on your brush as you lose control. So this is also behind the orange, so I'm going to put that, make that a bit darker. That would create a shadow. Okay, while it's still wet, don't wait too long. You're going to go and just blend that bit in. You don't want this too wet either. Okay, again, that's a little curl, so the curl would normally be lighter, and then underneath that curl there would be a shadow. And then we'll keep the light source there at the top. Yeah, and then just go down all the little stems, because generally they'd all have a bit of a dark and a bit of a light. This one's under the orange, so I'm actually going to make it a bit darker. So see how I just decide as I go. So you can do the same thing. You don't have to look at the picture and have it exactly the same. You decide as you go. But just make sure you have a little bit of dark and a little bit of light on all the bits and bobs. I know it's hard to get on the stems, but just try. And if you fill the whole stem out with dark, then that's okay. You also want to get in our little the bits that attach to the orange. Don't forget to put the green there, because I've forgotten. So make sure to do that. Okay, underneath this orange, I think it would be a bit darker and then maybe lighter towards the tip. Okay, don't need to go smudge. I'll smudge just along a little bit. I need a bit more water. Get a little bit more water. Dab it so it's not sopping wet. I think that piece needs a bit of dark there. There's too much light. Want to see if I'm still in the picture. Yes. Okay, well, let me just zoom out just a little bit. There we go. Oh, I used the wrong paintbrush now. I want to keep my big one for the blending. So I'll put that there. Okay, there behind the flowers, we want it a little bit darker because they would be casting a bit of a shadow. Okay, so my camera went off, but I filled in all of the leaves. So you can just do that. And you'll see I put a little bit of a darker shade behind here. On this leaf, it's a bit darker. Oops. And if you go and put some more paints on the darker bits now, right on the edge, it will also look lovely. But we are gonna add another variant of green just now, so don't stress too much about this. Just add a little bit just on the edges. Don't forget your little orange, I don't know what you call those, but where they connect. Okay. So once again, wherever you're working, you want it to be dry. So actually, let's do the inside of these flowers. Sorry. Okay, so that won't be touching anything. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to use a little bit of gamboge. I think that's how you say it. And again, you don't want it to be too strong, the color. So that looks good to me. Let me test it on my paper. If I just dab a little bit. Yes, that's perfect. Okay, we're just going to go dab the little yellow dots of the flowers where the yellow would be for the center. Okay, that's perfect. So that can dry now before we go on to the next bit of the flower. So what we're going to do now is we're going to paint our oranges orange. So orange is our first color over here. I just want to zoom out a little bit. Okay, so we're going to grab some of our orange. If you need to spray more water at any point, if you feel like your colors are very dry, you can do that. And then mix your color in here. Okay, we don't want this to be too light now because we're going on to our second layer. Okay, so just like the leaves, we're going to have a darker area and we're going to blend it into the rest of the orange. So it would always be darker sort of at the bottom opposite to where the light source was. So that area will always be thicker with a darker shadowy color. Okay, under the leaves, there would also be a bit of a shadow. Let me take it like that. Under the leaf there. Yeah, then we can just go around. There we go. Okay, now we've got to blend this in. So you clean your brush. Remember, if you don't want this to dry, as it's harder for you to lift the color and harder for you to blend it. So always remember to add clean water when you're blending. So now I've made a beautiful little gradient there. So now I've made this gradient, but my paintbrush has got paint on it, so I want to get that off. I want it to be completely clean, and then I want to smudge it into the lighter color as well. So now we've gotten this beautiful gradient. So I've washed it twice to get that effect. Okay, let's do the next one. Grab the orange. Again, opposite of your light source is where it will be thicker. So we've made our light source there. Under the orange, under the leaves would be a shadow. Leaf again. Okay, and then we clean our brush, dab it so it's not too wet, and then we go and smudge. And you really want to push down. You're not just using the tip, you're pushing down into that line and you're just squishing it around. There we go. Okay, again, we're going to wash it just for that inner line. So the second wash to get that gradient just right. And now this ring that it's created, we're going to blend as well. There we go. Perfect. Take some orange and we're going to do this one. Okay, under the flowers would be darker. And you don't really want to be trying to smudge under the flowers, so I'm going to move it. I'm going to make the shadow a bit thicker there. Okay, time to blend. Get your brush clean. Take excess off, dab a little bit and smudge it. Push nice and hard into that. Don't be scared. and smudge. Perfect. Now we wash again. Okay, and then we, with the clean brush, we smudge that next bit into the light sauce. Okay, that looks like I can smudge it a bit more, so I'm going to smudge it a bit more. Perfect. Okay, I feel like I'm running out of orange here. I'm just going to put a bit more orange in there. If you are not keeping up with me, just pause your video. Take your time to do what you need to do. Take a little bit straight from the tub as well. Yes, get a nice dark line there. That looks nice. Okay, now we blend. Rinse your brush off. Excess water off. Dab a bit of excess water off. And smudge, 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 smudge. Perfect. And then last time for that inner circle, and smudge, 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 smudge. And that's really looking nice. Okay, so I also want to add a little bit of dimples onto the orange. So I think let's take straight out of the tub because we want it a bit darker. I want you also to just test spotting a little bit. So we're going to add these to our orange. So just test a little bit like that. That's what I think I'm going to do there. I'm just going to dab a few little dots. If you're not comfortable with doing this, then you really don't have to. Now I'm going to rinse my brush off. I don't want it to be too wet now. And while it's still wet and our brush is clean, I want to go dab it in like that. So when you go to your next orange, just clean your brush again so there's not too much orange on it. Excess water off, dab, and okay, that's a bit too much water there. If there's puddles on your painting, it's too much water. Oops. Clean, dab, dab, and let's dab those in there. Take it a little bit into the lighter area as well, because it would cast a shadow. If there are dimples on fruits, they would cast shadows as well into the lighter area. I'm going to take a little bit into the lighter area. I think that looks nice. Remember, it's very little orange on those areas. Bless you. Okay, that's looking really, really lovely. So what I want to do now, also, if it is wet, so we're going to go to the flowers now, but if it is wet around your flowers, just give it 5 minutes. It can be cool, but the paint shouldn't be coming off onto your hand. Okay, so I suggest rather using the smaller brush for this because it is quite a small area, and we're going to now use Payne's Grey, which is number 10. So that will look like black, but it's actually a grey. And we want to, so these flowers are white, but with white it generally makes it like a grey shadow. So we want a very light grey to paint with. Just like that, that's perfect. Just want to zoom in a little bit. Okay, and we're going to go round the petal, like all on one edge of the petal. So there again will be a shadow and a bit of a light area. So I just go on one side. And it will also normally be a bit darker in the middle. When you're taking more of this one, just first test it, because you really don't want these to be too dark. So test that on your page first, and from your page you can take it, from the test page you can take it straight to your painting. Perfect. Got a little bit of droplets on my page. If you get that throughout your painting, you can just take your paper towel and dab it off. Don't know if you were even able to see that, but anyway. Okay. Now remember earlier I said we're going to go a little bit darker still with the leaves, so I'm going to do that now. With this green color that we've mixed before, the sap green and the viridian green, if you don't have any left, you can mix that up for me again. If you have some left, all I want you to do is add some magenta, and this just makes it like a darker, more moody sort of green, which is perfect for some extra shadows in the leaves. Show you on my test paper. So that's the color we had, and now we're going to go add that as well. So you can see it just adds a nice bit of a extra shadow. Okay, so again you can use your smaller paintbrush if you want. I think let me do my smaller one. So where the last shadows were, you don't want all of that covered. So it's less than the last shadow. So on that area there, so there'll be 3 variations of green now. Just there. This whole leaf was a bit darker, so we can add a bit more on this one. Maybe just on the tip here. Okay, and remember then we're going to smudge again. And we smudge as we go because we don't want it to get too dry. With the clean brush, just squish it there. I'm going to mix a little bit more of this shade. I don't have enough. And it's always nicer to mix with your, your bigger brush, because it just gets more paint. So I prefer that, unless you're obviously going to use a tiny bit of something. Okay, there we go, that should be enough now. Okay. Can add a bit there, under this little curl, will definitely be darker. And our stems we also want to try, so you can with the stems, because it's a bit hard to get it in. You don't have to do, you can just do like here and there, catch some with the darker green we've just made. Just like that, that's perfect. Okay, and you want to go in and blend all our hard lines. So with this one, you might find that it's hard to squish your brush right down with the petals. It's not like the oranges, so then you can just use the tip. So there's not enough space to squish it down and really get it smudged. So you'll just use the tip of your brush. I think I just want to zoom out a little bit. Okay. That's a little curl. Okay, and while it's wet, go smudge those bits in. That one is a curl, so that one can stay sharp. And just make sure to get a bit of dark on all of these pieces, because that would definitely have a bit of dark in it, because it's normally like a bit of a textured bit, so there's going to be shadows. Okay, and if you look at your picture and you feel like it needs a little bit more somewhere, then add it. Don't just follow my example. If you can see, because your painting will look different to mine, so if you see that yours needs more somewhere, then add it in. Perfect. Okay, so now my oranges just need another coat of orange here, just to get the nice bright orange at the bottom. So now shadow. So we're going to take this straight out of the tub just so that it's darker. If you need to wet your paints again at any point, please do. It just helps you to grab it easier. You have to work so hard to get it. So we're going to take it straight out, and I want you to go on the edge, and I want this one nice and dark. Just like that. This one where the leaf is, you can add a bit more for me. You're not going to go as much as the last time. Okay, and again we're going to blend. So we're not going to take it in as much as we did the last time. Okay, so I'm busy still with the oranges. Camera just went off again. Just getting the hang of recording these things. Okay, so on the edge again, straight from the tub. We want to get that orange in there. Can go around here. That would be dark underneath the leaf. And then we're smudging it in again. Remember, you want a clean brush to smudge. And then we smudge, 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 smudge. Okay, when the orange comes too much into the middle, you need to clean your brush more, get that pigment off. And please don't rinse your brushes over your painting like me. I'm just doing it so that I can remind you. Okay, there's a line there again. We want to clean our brush. And then there we go, smudge it all in. Okay, our last one, straight from the tub. Let's get that color in. Okay, clean your brush. I think those colors are looking so beautiful and vibrant. Just says summer. Okay, and we squish, push hard with this one. Remember, don't just use your tip, you got the space, use your whole brush and squish it in. I've added a bit too much water here, so you might not be able to see it on the camera, but just so that I don't have a puddle, I'm just gonna take the water off with my paper towel. There we go. Okay, clean your brush again and then go into the middle over there just to soften those edges. And that really looks beautiful. The texture on those look amazing. I'm really happy with that. Okay, so now again we're going to move on to the background, but you want this to be dry. So if you can feel here, the paint doesn't come off. It can be a bit cool to the touch, but it mustn't be wet. Then we can start with our background. So we're adding the next layer. When we add different layers in watercolor, it's called glazing or layering. So now we are going to mix two colors together. We are going to use our magenta again. And we're going to use scarlet, which is number 3. Okay, and that scarlet is quite a nice, beautiful, strong color. So that's the color that we get. How beautiful is that? Okay, so we don't want to go too dark with this color because we want the background and the darker shades to also come through. So just like before, just paint. Don't worry too much about if it's flat or not, and remember, we want the brush strokes, we want to see that. And what I like to do as well, so because I need to fill this whole background, so this is just something that I do just to make sure that it will seem that it was meant to be like that. I will paint with this color over there, so in case I need to mix again, that all, and the color is slightly different, that it's all not just one color here and then it's changed, so that it's just has unity and it doesn't look like I've made a mistake and I couldn't paint the same, I couldn't mix the same color again. So that's just something that I do that you can also do if you'd like to. Because yeah, with the background, it does take a lot of color so it can run out quite quickly. And we're going over everywhere again, just like we did before. And you can also have some bits a little bit thinner so that you have that magenta from earlier coming through. So every now and again try just take some water and then dilute that color on some edges, because that variation really looks nice together. Looks like I've drawn a face there. So I want to get into the middle with the same color, just in case it runs out, so I can make sure there's a bit of that color everywhere. I do find it's a bit hard to get a nice flow sometimes in between these little leaves and flowers. But it really doesn't matter, it still comes out beautiful. And I just think that pink and orange really looks so nice together. Okay, so I don't know if you noticed last time, but I'm sure now you notice that the page is warping. So remember, if we keep our masking tape on, it will fall down again, it will lay flat again. So I'm really trying to make this last bit work, but I think I am going to have to. Okay, so I'm going to mix a little bit more. So remember, it's a magenta. And then scarlet. Oh no, that's vermilion. Scarlet is number 3. Mix those two together. Remember to add a bit of water to some sections because you want that underneath layer to come through. You don't want to cover it all. You want a bit of that original magenta to shine through. I'm just going to go add a little bit more so it can create a bit of different tones in between here as well, because like I said earlier, sometimes it can be hard to do that. Get in between those two leaves over there. And that looks stunning. A bit dark there, I want to lift some there just to get a bit of light there. So to lift, we just use a clean brush and we squish, 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 squish. So you can also purposely go add a bit of dark bits where you'd like some. It's making a bit of a puddle, so just want to take some water out there. That one's also making a bit of a puddle. And that looks really, really, really good. Okay, and one last thing that I like to add, some extra shadow to my oranges. So you've used every color except for violet. So we are going to put a bit of violet here. Again, please make sure that your background is dry because you don't want it to bleed. So if you need to give it 5 minutes, pause the video and then carry on. So we're going to take some violet and just see how dark it is there on your test paper. Okay, and then we're going to go on the edge of our orange, just a line just like that. So try work quite quick with this as well. We are going to smudge it. We are going to blend it in. So I just love that bit of contrast on it. Rinse your brush, make sure it's clean. And then you go and smudge that little bit in just on the edge of that purple violet line. Just like that. You just don't want a solid line, that's all. Blend, blend, blend with your big brush. There we go. And the painting part is done. We're going to wait for it to dry now, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to do the pen. So I'm just going to switch the video off and I'll come back for the pen part in a bit. Okay, so it can take a while for your paper to dry. Before we move on to the pen, I really want your paper to be nice and dry. So It should now be lying flat. It shouldn't feel cool anymore as well for the pen. We want it completely dry. And now we're going to outline our oranges. So I like to do outlines on paintings just because it makes it look more like an illustration, which I quite like. If you love your oranges just as they are, you can leave it just as is, but then just sign your name. Be proud of what you've done today and sign your name. Okay, so when we are tracing, well, drawing our line on our orange, we're just going to follow the pencil line and the edges. That's all. If you feel a little bit nervous about putting your pen on, then once again you can practice. So where you've done all your little tests of watercolor, try practice going around those lines. That will help just loosen up your hand. So that's a great way if you're not feeling too confident. Just go play a little bit. There we go. So when you're feeling ready and confident, then you start with your outline. And just like with your painting, this also doesn't have to be perfect. If you go out of the line, don't try to correct it and make the line thicker. Just go with the flow. Because if you do end up trying to fix a line, you're just making it darker and darker. And then it's just going to catch. It's just going to steal the focus. So if you make a mistake, just continue. So this is where the little fold is of the leaf, and I definitely want to add that in. Okay, so our little flowers. I think I'm actually making some new petals here, but I'm just going with it. Here we go. Don't try and make lines too straight and concentrate too much, because it then will become hard. So don't go too fast either, but just go with it. Just go with the flow. When you are doing this orange, start with this orange, because you can confuse yourself here by this line. So do this orange. There, so that's in now, and then I wouldn't add another line there for the stem. The stem's going to go behind the orange. And yeah, by these things, I don't do like a whole little thing. I just make a few little dots. Dots and little lines. Like here now I've gone more into the background than the orange, and that's okay, because if I try and correct that, just going to attract attention there. Same with that. I've made a little mark inward. Doesn't matter, carry on. Don't try go around your orange in one stroke, because that will become difficult. Just do your orange and then change as what feels comfortable for you, because you might find it easier to come down this way and then come down that way, or to do bits. So don't try to do it all in one. This one also has that little piece, so I'm going to add that like that. Okay, this flower is very small. Okay, and then just like little lines, yeah, also want to add some lines. And there we go, it's all done. Now we can take off our masking tape, and remember also your page needs to be flat again, it needs to be dry. When you are taking off your masking tape, do it really slowly, because else you can end up pulling some of the paper off, and you don't want to do that. So nice and slowly, don't rush it. And if you do find that you've torn a bit of the paper, then go to the side and then start from that side. But if you do it nice and slowly, it generally will work out nicely. So like I said, then it creates that beautiful border also around your oranges. And there we go, you have a piece of art.